Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazal Ministries podcast.
Do you think that Hell's Kitchen has good deviled eggs? This is Systematic Geekology. We are the priest of the geeks. I am one of your geekologists, Kevin Schaeffer, here with one of my fellow geeks, Evan Garcia. Evan, how are you today?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing, man? I'm doing pretty well. Glad to be on to talk what we've been watching in the What's News without the question mark.
It is. Well, this is another What's News episode, which we have some great stuff to talk about today. We are going to be hitting primarily on Daredevil Born Again later on, and then first, after geeking out on, we're going to talk about the Righteous Gemstones, which I'm really excited for, because I don't think we've done an episode on that before, and I know you and I are fans, so not that I can think of. Maybe, at least not that I've done, so I am looking forward to that. But yeah, and we'll also just talk about everything new in the geek culture or stratosphere. So very glad to have you all here today. So Evan, before we get into any of those topics, what else have you been geeking out on lately?
I have been geeking out on something very specific, and I didn't think I was going to like it, but I became completely obsessed because my wife and my daughter were completely obsessed. And it's the Squid Game challenge, the game show. That's the Squid Game show. I got completely hooked. I don't usually like game shows anymore because they're all the same and they're very high emotions. I've got nothing wrong with them. I just haven't seen them in forever because they're all the same. But this one hooked me in because the production quality was just like the show, like the sets and in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, the planning that had to go into this. There were 500 contestants and they were doing the games, and I was impressed. And then I became invested in the different characters and how do you carve a storyline from 500 contestants, and then you bring it down into one. Because from what I know, the other game shows are there's 20 people or so, maybe 50 people. This 500, 456, whatever. And the person that I wanted to win didn't win, but they played the game right. They played the game good, and they deserve to win. But I was like, dang.
And just to be clear, unlike the show, you don't have to risk your life to play, do you?
No, but it's kind of cheesy. On most of the games, they when the people get that's eliminated, they get these little squibs on their chest, and they squirt.
Oh wow!
And then the people kind of get all dramatic and they fall over. It's like, okay, I could do without that cheesiness. I didn't need that.
Yeah.
But there's a part where they recreate the glass bridge challenge from the show. Ooh, that one, when they quote unquote died, you felt it. You thought that they died. It's like they're gone. It's like, oh, that one was kind of intense.
That's wild. It's just so, I know you've raved about Squid Game before, and it is just such a cultural phenomenon, and I love that out of this dystopian, Hunger Games-esque kind of show, that a game show has evolved from that. It's fascinating.
It's wild, wasn't it, right?
Yeah. That's awesome, though. But I love that it's fun. You and your family are playing. That's really cool. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, on my end, so still Severance season 2. I know, now that season is almost over, I'm sure we'll do an episode on that soon, because I know Will watches it. I think Pang does. I can't really like. There's that. We have several hosts who do. So it has been a bonkers season. Like, I mean, it's always been a brilliant show, but they have gone in just so many unexpected directions in this season with both storylines and exploring characters that were more supporting that they've given entire episodes to, and just like you never really know what to expect each season or where it's going and how it impacts the world building. It's just a brilliant show all around. So watching that, and then also on an Apple note, I binged it in like 2 weeks. Both seasons of Shrinking, which is a fantastic show.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Like, have you seen it, or did you watch it last or anything? Okay, yeah.
I know what it is though. I've been wanting to see it.
It's great, and like they just announced for season 3 that Jeff Daniels is joining the cast, which is fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, so that'll be it. But it's a delightful show. I think if you're, fans of Ted Lasso, it's a lot of the same creators. They just switch out Jason, so it's Jason Segel instead of Sudeikis. But yeah, it's a great fusion of comedy and drama. I mean, like there are some criticisms toward it, the plotting is a little too ridiculous, or that it kind of like tackles on too many things. But I found it to be I would love to do an episode on that, but like I find it a really fascinating look at just grief and how we process it and how it doesn't always make sense the ways we respond to it. And it's not meant to be realistic, but it also says really profound things about grief and the human condition. And it does it in a really charming manner. The characters are just people I would love to spend time with, like if they were real. And
yes.
I just love their interactions. It's a phenomenal cast. I just really like the writing and how, again, it fuses comedy and drama really well. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I binged through it, and now I'm missing it because I finished it so quickly. I'll be able to watch it live once we get to season 3. So those are some of the big things to geeking out on. Yeah.
That's Severance to season 2, man. The memes are coming in fast and hard with those memes. I love it,
dude. And I was talking with some people who haven't watched the show yet, and like I was explaining the concept to them, and they were like, "Okay, now a lot of the memes and stuff I'm seeing make a lot more sense." Like I didn't spoil the show for them, but I gave them the basic concept, and now they have a better understanding of like what innies and outings mean. It's like last night I was at my Star Wars RPG group, and like 2 of the members they don't work at the same hospital, but they're both hospice chaplains, and they were talking about like some of the people they each know and through work and all that, and they're just like in this conversation, and I was like, "Oh, your outies are talking about your innies right here." Yeah. So they like that, but it is a great show, so we'll definitely tackle that.
Right on.
Sweet. Well, right on. So, getting into the main topics of this episode. So, and also before we do that, just want to give a shout out to all of our Patreons and anyone who supports the show. We super appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, we're getting into spring weather, so he could revive his promise of frolicking through a field of flowers if we get 50 likes on this video or any of our videos. So literally all you have to do if you're watching this is hit the like button. I know it gets annoying when YouTubers say that. Like I get annoyed when, but it is not hard. You just hit the button and Will report himself frolicking through a field of flowers. So if you don't want to miss that, make it happen and make our dreams come true. But we sincerely appreciate your support. So thank you all for being here. Let's get on to the main topic. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Righteous Gemstones, because the show just returned for its 4th and final season with the premiere this week. And I'm very excited to talk about this one. We are going to get into spoilers for this and for Daredevil today, because we can't really talk about this without getting it. So there's your first spoiler, is that Bradley Cooper was the guest of honor in this week's episode.
He's in it.
We'll get into more. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so and what a brilliant, we'll get into that fully, but first, I want to ask, so what's your background with this show? This, for people who don't know, this is the best way to describe it is a pastor action comedy from Danny McBride and his collaborators about a mega church family that runs this like mega church empire in South Carolina. And I describe it as like a Coen Brothers film in TV form, because it draws so much influence from that. Like it's the same kind of black comedy and crime noir. So we'll get into more of the plot mechanics, but Evan, what's your background with the show? Like, when did you start watching?
I started watching right when it started because I came off of, I had a coworker that he was all about the show, the Vice Principals show. I don't know.
Yeah.
That show, the one that Danny McBride did previous to this. So he got me hooked on that show, and then this show came on like a month later. So I was able to watch them kind of back to back. I was able to watch Vice Principals and then start this, and I loved it since the beginning. I just love it since the beginning. Yeah.
And that's awesome that you were watching from the beginning because, like I had known about it for a while. I think it premiered in 2019, and then there was like a brief break in between the seasons with COVID and all that, and then with the strikes. But like,
I think it was coming back. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so, but I only started watching back in December, and I fell in love with it right away and binged most of it over the holidays. And then I think I finished season 3 in like early January. So I fell in love with it, and I've not seen Vice Principals. I'm going to go to that next because again, like that's the thing about like David McBride. A friend and I were talking about this. Is like, he was known for a lot of the Judd Apatow comedies and stuff like that, like kind of the stoner ones, and like was always super funny. But I knew he was a screenwriter on the new Halloween movies, because one of his longtime collaborators, David Gordon Green directed those, and so they wrote those together. And so like I knew he was a writer as well, but like until I watched Righteous Gemstones, I just didn't know like how phenomenal a storyteller he is. He's just brilliant as a writer director, and I just fell in love with this show for multiple reasons. I mean, it's obviously hilarious, and it's just like you get into the meat of this family, which is Eli Gemstone, played by John Goodman, is the patriarch and the head of this megachurch, and then his 3 adult children are Jesse, played by Danny McBride. Yes. Oh yes, I love it. Like, and then Judy, played by Edie Patterson, who's also a writer on the show. Fantastic. Probably I think the 2 funniest characters might be her and Baby Billy, played by Walton Goggins, which we'll get into as well. And then Kelvin, the younger son, played by Adam Devine. And like all of them are so funny. But I think what I really like, right from the pilot, what I liked was, okay, here's a show that could easily just make fun of like people in the megachurch environment and in like Christian circles in general. And instead, it has like, as funny as and absurd as it is at times, it also has a lot of depth to the characters because like, so for instance, like, I mean, in the pilot, a lot of it, after you do the intro of the characters and you get to know his family a little bit, and they all live on this major estate that the Gemstones have had for a while, because Eli is very rich, and you get a little insight into their lives, and then at the end of the episode, Jesse is blackmailed by 2 masked gunmen in a mall parking lot because they have a sex tape of him that they're going to expose. And you think it's going to like just the season would end with just it getting out and like the family gets taken down and all, it would just be this. But it handles everything so smart, like in such a smart way where you don't really know where it's going to go, and it takes a lot of twists and turns, and it is both, again, comedy and drama. And again, it very much like tackles the absurdities particularly with megachurch environments and like the hypocrisy of a lot of like big celebrity pastors, and it intentionally does that. But it also gives a lot of humanity and depth to each characters, and you continually fall in love with them, like both with their faults and with their strengths, and they add new villains each season. It just like it's funny. It's it's like I said, very noir as well. I just really loved it from the beginning. What are some of your favorite, before we get into the season 4 premiere, what were some of your favorite characters or favorite moments leading up to this season?
Wow. I haven't seen them since the premiere, but I remember in season 3, the whole the whole thing about Baby Billy trying to get that TV show off the ground.
Oh my gosh!
That whole kerfuffle, that whole craziness, that was great. But this whole show, like you said, it's so easy to kind of make fun of the Christians, or which to be honest, it kind of does, but it does it with heart, and he makes fun of it, but then he slides in the truth. Like, yeah, these people are humans too. They're trying to deal with this stuff. Sure, this is exaggerated, and hey, look, if you were probably in this position with all this money and all these people, you're probably doing the same thing too, man. So, and one thing that my coworker at the time said, that when he first got me into it, he goes, he said that Danny McBride's theme, that there's a theme that he likes to do with all his movies and his TV shows, is that he likes to bring he likes to bring people that people put on pedestals and humanize them. So with like Eastbound and Down, the baseball players, the athletes, they do some crazy stuff because they're just human too. Vice principals, people put teachers on pedestals too for the right reasons. However, they do crazy stuff as well. Like, there's a crazy world of teacherness, you know? It's like, so this is like his magnum opus almost. Like you saw it coming that he was going to tackle the Christians, and especially this a certain kind of Christianity that is loud and big and prosperity gospel, stuff like that. So yeah. So I am excited to get into the spoilers for this episode. So what do you think about this episode?
Oh, it was phenomenal. And I just want to say that is a great point too about he said it perfectly about how it analyzes, because it's like if you were to make a show about Joel Osteen, like, I mean, you could just make fun of him the entire time, but it's more, rightfully so, but it's like, that gets boring. What it is, like you said, it takes like the megachurch prosperity gospel themes and really makes a compelling ensemble. And I agree. Baby Billy. So Baby Billy, played by Walton Goggins, is the brother-in-law of Eli. And like when you meet him in the show, you know, he has a wife who's like, you know, younger than the adult children in the show, and like. And he's this older dude. And like, also I love that. So Walton Goggins is also on this season of The White Lotus. And so like, I love that like Sunday nights belong to Walton Goggins right now, because I watch Righteous Gemstones and then watch White Lotus, and he's on both now. But cool. Yeah, in season 3, he creates a show, because they have so much money, they have like a whole network, through the Gemstones. And so he pitches a show to them called Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers, which is just Family Feud with Bible trivia. And I was on the floor. Like, that's the other thing about the show is like, because like I watch a lot of comedy and stuff, but like if I'm not with people, it's rare that I can like be bust out laughing watching something by myself. And this show does that, and it has that ability.
So perfectly him, and the way he did it, I was just like. And the song that he sings later. I have that on a playlist. There'll be a payday. Like, I'm not even gonna try to sing it, because like just go look it up on YouTube. It's brilliant. Yeah. But yeah, so a lot of great stuff. But yeah, let's get into the season premiere. So again, this is the 4th and final season, and in the premiere, this was a wild I don't think anyone was expecting a full-on opening because like the show has done flashback episodes before, but they've all been about Eli's younger self and Elsa. So Eli's a widow, and so the flashback episodes have mainly served to dig into his wife is foundational to who he becomes as a person and his children, and so we get to know her in the flashback episodes, and we get a very young Eli episode. We get several flashback episodes of Judy, Jesse, and Calvin as kids. But this episode, which opens in the Civil War in Virginia. So right off the bat, we're like, whoa, we're going back to. So you think it's going to explore the origins of the Gemstone family.
and we open at a small church in Virginia. So obviously, since this is a Confederate state, the preacher there is giving a very like pro-Confederacy sermon, and we wonder if like, oh, is this like one of the Gemstones, like the founder? You know, is this the so we meet this and he's talking about how, oh, it's an honor that your husbands are out fighting the good fight and all this stuff, and he gives this like this message, and then has this kind of like lust in his eyes as he's collecting money from congregants, and it's gonna go to himself, obviously, and so you're like, oh yeah, this is a very Gemstone thing to do, like, and it like feeds into that. But then a huge twist, and like so the congregation leaves, and then there's this guy hanging in the background, and he starts talking, and even before they show his face,
pew, like he was sleeping
comes
there.
Out of a pew. Yes. He just comes out of a pew there to go like talk about the like after he's collected all the money, and even before he shows his face, you're like, is that Bradley Cooper? And sure enough, it is. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so we find out that this is actually the Gemstone and what happens is he kills the minister and steals the money there. And right as he's about to leave, the Confederate squadron knocks on the church door and they assume that he's the preacher in the church, because obviously he's not going to let him in and show the dead body there. So they think he's the preacher, and they ask him if, or they tell him he's been assigned to be the chaplain for the Confederacy in this part of the state. And so he's like, okay, yeah, let me go get my things. Because initially he's trying to turn it down, but then he hears that it pays well too. And this guy's the ultimate con. Right, $50 a month and free meals, so which is a lot back then. So being the con man that he is, he goes and messes up the minister's face more, and writes a letter saying that they like to fake his identity and say that that he's actually the priest, and that a man named what was the Gemstone's first name? It was Elijah. Yeah. So this is Elijah Gemstone, the founder. Yeah. So he frames it all and like leaves the preacher there for dead, goes off the Confederacy, and now and this is where some of the funniest moments I think in the show come about, where this guy with no minister experience whatsoever is trying to pretend to be a chaplain. And you see echoes of Jesse here. You see echoes of kind of a younger Eli. But some of the moments here where he's having to pray for some of the fallen soldiers, I don't know about you, but this is one of the moments I was just like on the floor laughing, where there's a man dying and he's asking Elijah to pray for him, and he's like, all right, well, just give me a minute. I'm trying to think of the right words here. And by the time he thinks of something, the guy dies. And I was just like, this is the most righteous Gemstones thing he could possibly do. And Bradley Cooper gives a phenomenal performance here. Mm-hmm. I read, too, that he had never seen an episode of Gemstones before. And he didn't want to until this episode was finished filming, because he wanted to come in blind and just be able to tackle the character on his own. And it's so funny because, like, he taps into so much, and a lot of it is in the writing and the directing, but still, he taps into so much of, again, this is like something Jesse would do, a lot of his behavior. And this guy is out like gambling and drinking. And when another soldier says like, that's odd behavior for a minister, he fires back and says like, hey, are you trying to insult the man of God? Because like you could go to hell that way. Like, and he just like, and the way he does it, I was like, this is such a Jesse Gemstone thing. So I love how they mirror that. But then, like you were talking about earlier, and how this show does both absurd, over-the-top comedy and also gives its characters extreme sincerity. So after, fumbling his way and like BSing his way through his role as like a chaplain here and trying not to be exposed, and and then he gives like a 2-minute sermon, and he's like, okay, are we done here? I think that was good.
I could not sit through that. It was so hard to sit through. I was laughing and crying, but not crying in a good way.
Oh my gosh, that was like, it's just one of the best moments. But after all of that, and and then he kills another guy for money. He's still this horrible person. But then at the very end, when a bunch of soldiers are about to be executed, he has this shift where he gives a very sincere message to them, and it really does like come from his heart, and he's like trying to think of the right way to say. And then at the very end, he starts reading this like gold sealed Bible, and you get that he is like on the road to a path of redemption. And I love this quote you pulled up. Oh, I did already. It's done. I've been praying the whole time silently in my mind. Yeah, that is a quote from this episode.
I choked on my coffee when I watched when I heard that line. That's something that I would have said when I was younger.
Yes.
Like when I was not comfortable praying with people, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I related to what he was like. This whole show, great to recap, by the way, of the episode. It was a great to recap. Those were all the great story beats. But the show had it had me laughing, it had me crying, it had me feeling things I haven't felt in a while. Like I felt mad, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's my Cage stage coming back again. Like for some reason the show didn't do it, but this episode, in the time frame, in the whole period piece part of it, kind of felt more real. So I was like, oh no, you can't pretend to pray with somebody. Like, how dare you? But then the other side of me was laughing so hard, you know, because I related to it. The second, it's just how absurd he is. So the whole episode, I was like two minds, and I had to reconcile with some of the stuff that I was thinking about it. But overall, I loved it. Bradley Cooper's portrayal of a good con man that, like you said, that it foreshadows what they do hundreds of years later.
Exactly. It's just like this is like the perfect origin, and I was like, I read a lot about this episode, and I Danny McBride said that the idea kind of came to him because he was listening to an audiobook about the Civil War, and like a part of it mentioned chaplains at the time, and he's like, I didn't even think about that as an actual job people had, and still have during times of war, and so that was what gave him the idea, and he wanted. And the thing is, when this episode started, I was like, oh, this is a really cool intro. I was not expecting it to be the full episode, to be a period piece and to be just the origins of the first Gemstone. It was a brilliant and a bold choice to start the final season that way. And I don't know if we'll see Elijah again in this season. We might be able to, another flashback. Maybe to see some of his early ministry days. I don't know, but even if this is all we get, I think this is just, and it's also, it points to, I know we were talking earlier just about how good a storyteller Danny McBride is, and this just shows his chops as a director with the budget. Like you said, it felt like a really authentic period piece. It really captured the atmosphere.
It reminded me of I know that it's a different war, but I remember. Do you remember the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
It reminded me of that, just the brutality of the violence, but then they get wholesome almost with the feelings and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I think, a good comparison. It comes to that atmosphere, and because there are moments of real levity and funny, and then a brutal moment where he's just talking to his soldiers and his head gets blown off, and and it doesn't shy away from the violence there. That's again the brilliant thing about this show is it is absurd in a lot of ways, and it's funny, and it's but it's also not afraid to tackle the effects of violence.
God on both sides,
power.
It's that's a topic because they saved his life from a executional for the shooting, just because he was a man of the cloth. So that shows that they valued it just enough to have the clergy, but they were still fighting a war, so they still had to fight the war. And so like you said, it shows the struggles of that time, and which I was not expecting to see from the Righteous Gemstones.
No, not at all. And that's what I love on the show. It continues to surprise you, and yeah, I'm gonna miss it when it's gone. Like I know, like, because that was the other thing. When they announced it would be the final season, like he didn't even tell the cast until about they were filming the last episodes because he didn't want to like them to be in the mindset the whole time. But I respected his hit. Like he chose to end on its own terms. Like they've had like the cast, you hear them talk about like how much fun they have making it, and it's been like a huge passion project. But like I'm like, as much as I love the show, it's like Eli is getting older. Like I don't. It's one I don't want to go on forever and it like run out of ideas because like I really like how they structured each season and they give a good different villain each time and they've really developed the characters. So I think it's smart to do quality over quantity. But nonetheless, I will miss it. But yeah, exactly. It just like continues to surprise you and have just like these really sincere themes and characters that balance the absurd comedy and humor of it. And this episode I thought was just one of the best. And Bradley Cooper was fantastic. I am really stoked for where the season now because I think now, as far as obviously since this episode took place entirely in this era, we don't really know much about what plot line it'll follow once we get back to our main cast of characters here.
Yeah, because there's so many threads.
There's a lot of threads to conclude, but I think the one thing we will see is it's been teased I think in the trailer is that gold Bible that that's like a family emblem, and so
what if they make it like the Pulp Fiction suitcase or something?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It could be that. It could be its own MacGuffin. Like we'll see. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah. But it's a great episode. Yeah. If you're, I know that was spoilers, but even then, if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the show, I highly recommend go and check it out because it is just like, it's funny. It's like sincere. It has one of my favorite just ensembles, I think, in TV in a while, and it's a great show all around. So yeah, but. Anything else you want to say on this premiere or just right?
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. And like you said, I'm glad it's a HBO series in the sense that it's going to have some closure, that it's not going to go on for 25 seasons, Mm-hmm. I kind of like, you kind of make your point and then you're done. So that's great. Because
it also makes me excited for what Danny McBride's going to do next. Like, same with Bill Hader with Barry.
Right.
Like Barry was brilliant, and I'm still waiting on what Bill Hader is doing. Oh my gosh! Like that's the thing. I'm still waiting to see what Bill Hader does next. Because like Bill Hader and Danny McBride, both great examples of like comic actors who are brilliant filmmakers, and I want to see that whether they'll do another show next or a movie or what. But I'm all for they're I think some of my favorite creators today.
Right.
Sweet. Awesome.
All right.
Sweet.
Hey guys, Christian here to talk about our Captivate options. That's when you send us a little extra money to just help us along with our projects. But what do you get by giving us that extra money? Well, you have access to any future online D&D campaigns. You get extra bonus question content, which we do at least 48 times a month. You can make a one-time donation here of any amount to help support the show. This helps us with our overhead. That includes the editing software that we use, the recording software that we use, the marketing that we have to do for the show, the equipment that we all need to use to help out with the show, and more. So thank you for what you do. Head out to Captivate. Help us out. We really appreciate what you do. See you later.
Well, let us get on to Daredevil then. And fair warning, this is we're going to get into heavy spoilers here. As of recording, there are 3 episodes out so far. This is Daredevil Born Again, which is a continuation. This is the first thing we'll talk about is that this is a continuation of the Netflix series. I know when they announced that Daredevil was coming back, and they had Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio there from the beginning, but there was I think initially they were trying to do a full reboot, and then they eventually pivoted toward making all the Netflix shows canon, and this be a continuation, and still be kind of a soft reboot and a jumping on point, but all the events preceding were canon, and this picks up a few years later. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and say that Daredevil is my favorite Marvel character. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube and you see my description here, I have met Charlie Cox. I met him at a con last year, and then I've also met Deborah Ann Wool, who plays Karen, and John Bernthal, who plays Punisher. So I got pictures with all of them. Nicest people. I was beyond stoked because I love the original Netflix series. I was super excited for this series to come back, and and what it would do. So, and right off the bat, it opens with a banger here. But like, do you want to give a little bit about what happens in the premiere and the episode so far?
Yeah.
And feel free to talk about too, like, your background with the character and the series.
It's crazy to think it's been, I think, around 10 years since the first premiere of the Netflix project. I remember that going around when this premiered out on Netflix, and it's a reboot on Disney Plus. Kind of, they are they continue it, like you said, and what happens in this season, it's a continuation. Like, things aren't happy, like things are in a good place. They are at a bar, and Foggy's making moves on a girl. Matt and everyone, they are just chilling, and they introduce some new characters and stuff, which I think was new characters because I don't remember them from the beginning. Like the guy with the glasses. He is he's like a retired cop. And this guy the environment. Okay. So he is one they brought in for Born Again. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, then they're in a bar, and then Foggy takes a call, and it looks it's kind of serious because his little spidey sense, because Matt's spidey sense goes off essentially, And I love how the aspect ratio got big, and if he got big but then got small at the same time, and then you could tell that he was trying to focus on Foggy's phone conversation, and it turns out there's a client that he had that he's trying to protect, that he's trying to bunker in his home or in his apartment that has some bad guys on his tail. And then they all go outside, and they start to talk about it. They were a client, and then they're like, why don't you do that? And then out of nowhere, boom, Foggy gets shot right through the chest, blood flying everywhere. Then Matt will take off, and it turns out it's Bullseye. Bullseye is still alive. There's some things that happen later, like he has some powers now that he can probably not die from things now because of the surgery. But there's a fight, and it's a good callback to the first fights of the first season and the ones after that, where they instead of going down a building, they go up a building, kind of like the movie Raid. They go up a building, and then they fight on the top, and then Foggy ends up dying, and then Matt, as Daredevil, throws Bullseye just kind of like flicks him off the top, and you see it all, and he splats on the floor. And I was like, oh, this is how it's going. All right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, it's the whole political drama. We learned that Fisk is coming back, that Vanessa has been running the business while Fisk has been away with the stuff from the Hawkeye series and the Echo series, yes.
Yeah.
He was doing that, and he's a changed man now, and he wants to run for governor or for mayor of New York. And there's a little bit of a tension there between him and Vanessa, and then it goes a year later, and Matt is he's the lawyer again, and he has some new partners. What's her face is in California, I think it was.
Yes, Karen. Yeah. Karen's there, and then Kirsten, his new partner, Kirsten McDuffie, who she's from the comics too, is his new partner, and so they because after the opening scene, it jumps a year forward, and it's real, like, so him and Karen aren't working together anymore because it's clear that like Matt hit rock bottom after Foggy's death, and his guys started over, and it's like put distance between them, and so now he's starting a new firm with Kirsten. and new love interest develops, and Fisk does become mayor, and oh man, that the scene between that, I know it was teased in the trailers, but between them at the diner was just one of the best. They get their heat moment, where it's just the two of them talking, and it's in some ways even better than a lot of the fight scenes we've seen before. That was just such a tense, where they each say to each other, if you step up, I'm coming after you, because at this point Matt has put behind the Daredevil alias, and he's trying to just do everything as a lawyer, and I want to talk about that first. So the title is Born Again, which is a callback to an iconic Frank Miller story in the comics, which I knew this series wasn't going to be an adaptation of that, because they kind of already did a loose adaptation of it in season 3 of the original Netflix series, along with Guardian Devil there. But the title was more to indicate that Daredevil's back. This is a reboot of him being really brought into the MCU. It just worked as a title. But it also speaks to he does put Daredevil behind him after Foggy. He promises he's not going to do it again after Foggy's death, because he blames himself, which is a classic thing we've seen in a lot of superhero stories before. But that's my only thing is I expected him to put on the suit a little earlier, because now we're 3 episodes in and he still hasn't returned. It's been so far more of a courtroom drama. So what do you think about that approach? I mean, I think it's going to happen soon, but still, it is a bold thing to have it be sort of a Matt Murdock story for a while there, especially since it's been a while since we've seen Daredevil. Yeah. But how do you feel about that approach?
I kind of feel I'm gonna do a parallel to The Last Jedi, and where we don't see Luke being Luke Skywalker. It's just hey, we're here to see Daredevil. We did see the fight between him and Bullseye, which was amazing. And my wife goes, "Wait a minute, can he fly now?" Because he was using his baton things, and I was like, no, he's got these cool sticks with the metal line on them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I was thinking that too. That this show is taking the swing of not having him be Daredevil for at least a good chunk. So, I like what they've done. It's he's very typical Matt. He's he takes things to the extreme, and that's what he does, and to me that was in line with his character. So, and I like how it's giving us, or it's him not being Daredevil in the suit is letting us get into a glimpse as to what he's been doing and how he's been living since we've done since the death of Foggy and since we last left him, and it's kind of good to see that he's the same old, but at the end of the second episode, I was like, I'm pretty sure he's straight up, because I've never seen the third episode yet. So I'm on the first 2. Sorry. It's fine. But right now, I'm pretty sure he straight up killed those two thugs in the apartment. So I'm like, so technically Daredevil doesn't kill people, but Matt Murdock does apparently. So okay, that's where we're at, I guess.
That was a pretty brutal fight, and I won't say what happens there, but I'm glad you said you haven't seen episode 3 yet, because I was about to drop a major spoiler about that, so I won't refrain there. But one of the things it looks at too is there's another vigilante character from the comics called the White Tiger that is being that he's arrested because he was involved in a scene where a cop was killed, and he didn't do it, but he's being kind of framed and opposed by the NYPD. And now with Fisk as mayor, Fisk is running a very anti-vigilante campaign, So that provides a really interesting dynamic as well. But all that said, I won't spoil what happens in episode 3, but it does indicate that it's pushing Matt closer to, reviving Daredevil very soon. But overall, I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying. I mean, granted, like I said, Daredevil is my favorite Marvel character, so it's not that hard to please me with a character like this. Like, I mean, you just put him in the show is back and you've got Charlie Cox there. I'm happy. But so far, like, I like how it builds on everything that's happened within the original series. But still tells kind of a fresh story here. And I like that we're seeing new characters too,
Mm-hmm. Yes. I like the new characters because it gives a chance to connect to the bigger MCU. Because what I took away from the show was it still has the gritty street level kind of feel to it, like the previous Netflix show did, but it has this kind of polish. It has this kind of style to it where that kind of matches and that makes it fit into the MCU now, because the MCU movies, they are very much cut from the same cloth. Like they've created a style basically, and I think this fits very well into that. And I look very much forward to see the kind of connections that they make between the two series, because I remember I had the hopes of them doing it when it was on Netflix, but it was the TV team and the movie team for Marvel. They had some drama and they didn't like to connect and stuff like that. So there was no hope there. But now I think there's going to be hope where, sure, Thor's probably not going to come down and save the day, but there's going to be feelings a part of it and stuff like that. And I'm picking up on the setup because I could tell from the first episode and the second episode that there was going to be a completely different show, but the way they blended it together was perfect. The way that the first episode ended, and then from what I heard, the second episode was pretty much going to be the premiere show of the show. So the way they blended that together was beautiful. I was like, right on. They made it so cohesive I'm kind of disappointed that we got the main three and then now we don't have the main three, but they still live on in his decisions as Matt Murdock. And I'm starting to see the fingerprints of the writers and the directors. They're the guys. If you haven't, I'm going to do a shameless plug for a previous episode that I did with our guy Will Rose on The Endless. It's a sci-fi show from the same directors, and it is. I could see that on the bigger scale here now with the characters, and I'm loving it. I'm totally loving this. So I never had a big attachment to Daredevil. I didn't know about him until I seen him, but I didn't know about him until the Netflix series. But I'm glad they are putting this kind of power behind Daredevil.
100%. And no, I'm so glad you brought up Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Like, The Endless is a great movie. And so they directed the pilot, and they're listed as executive producers throughout the show. So I think they're big creative forces here because they were also directors on Moon Knight. So they've been with Marvel for a while. I think
Loki
between
too.
them. Yes, and Loki. And so between them and then the Newton brothers doing the soundtrack, it's just like they've got some great talent here. And yeah, that is the cool. I like how they did it like we were talking about earlier, of they originally had it as a full reboot. And like you said, the second episode was going to be the premiere originally. And then, but they made it really cohesive. And I like that they gave that, even though, like I said, it's short lived of like seeing the original trio that we love. Like, oh yay, Foggy and Karen are back, and Foggy's not, and then Karen's gonna go away. It was brutal, but it also like it works as I think a good story beat to kind of like set the series in motion. And I liked that they still got to pay homage to them and also recognize that it is moving forward. Like the way a friend was asking me, because he's seen a lot of the Netflix series, but hasn't seen all of it. And he wants to check this out, but he's like, can I jump onto this without having seen all of it? And I said, yes, because I compare this to like when they change creators for a new comic run of the same character, like everything that came before is still canon, but you get a new creative team and a new direction. That's a lot what this feels like. So yeah, you get the same characters, and so I think they're handling it really well. But yeah, I'm glad you said you haven't seen episode 3, so I will not spoil what happens there. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I just love seeing these characters back, and yeah, Daredevil is someone I've loved for a long time. I think I was initially introduced in the 90s Spider-Man animated series. And then he quickly became one of my favorite comic characters.
That is a good point, because I don't remember him from that show. I remember that show. I remember watching it. For some reason, he went over my head for some reason, I guess.
Dude, go back and watch on Disney Plus. Like, he's in several episodes there, but like, it's a great, And I mean, Charlie Cox is, to what you said about this, is definitely bringing in to the larger MCU. Like, they've dropped Spider-Man references and everything. And obviously Punisher is back here. But like, Charlie Cox has said for a long time, like, he would love to team up with Tom Holland in a Spider-Man movie and fight Kingpin together, or do some street level. Be awesome. It would be awesome. Yeah. So they,
to tie in our both topics today, I realized as I was watching the Daredevil, the episodes of Daredevil, both of these two shows feature prominent large white men in white suits. I was like, that's interesting.
And like power hungry moguls here, and like
there you go. There you go. I was like,
and also when you think about a criminal becoming a politician who's like has all this history, like, I mean, I don't know how that's relatable in today's world, but but yeah, I'll save that for another time. But but I do think that is very intentional too, and like also the Mayor Fisk run in the comics came out during Trump's first presidential term, so
that's right.
It is not a mistake at all that there are a million comparisons there. But yeah, so it is. But yeah, no, I mean, I love Daredevil. I'm thoroughly enjoying this so far. So I am ready to see him suit up. So I hope it won't take too much longer.
And they put the D's on his chest, maybe.
Yes,
that would be great. Yeah. Finally,
it would be awesome. I mean, they've teased like multiple costumes too, so I'm really excited to see.
I was a little skeptical though in that opening fight. I noticed it could have been my frame rate on my TV or something, maybe, but I think they were CG for a lot of it, and I was like, I don't like that. Okay. I don't like that at all. I hope that's just that they didn't have time to do it or something. And I'm like, I want some real gritty action. Sure, you can have special effects and you can do the oneers that they're not really oneers, but they are oneers. I love that, but I don't want to have the whole Black Panther effect thing going on.
I agree. I mean, Daredevil especially is very street level. Like, I want to see that. And they did such a phenomenal job with the fight scenes in the original. Like, I do want to see more of that. So I agree.
Good.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. Well, Evan, before we wrap up, do you have any recommendations either related to these topics, or it could be something totally different?
Recommendations. I say to watch the Netflix season again, because they're on Disney Plus, and we are just about to finish them up, because my wife, we were on season 3 and then we started watching this, and then that made her go back and watch and to finish that season. So yeah, just kind of watch that, and keep a lookout on the output of the Systematic Geekology, because I think we're putting out some good stuff.
I love it. Josh will give you bonus points for plugging our podcast and recommendations. But yeah, and I will recommend for the comics, the Daredevil run by Mark Waid and Chris Samney. Other artists too, but they were kind of the main ones. That's one of my favorites. And if you're looking for a story that is like, it still has like all that costume general stuff, but is also has more levity to it. And you get to see a lot of fun villains there. You get to see characters from this series in there. So Kirsten McDuffie is a prominent player there. It's a great run. That's some of my favorite Daredevil stories. And he did it. I mean, he wrote that book for years. So that's one of my favorites. I mean, I love, the Frank Miller stuff was classic, and he, really reinvented the character and is responsible for, particularly this adaptation. But Mark Waid's run is one of my favorites, so I highly recommend that.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm thinking about getting back into comics now that I'm with all you guys, because I haven't read comics since 2015. I had to kind of put them down. But I was just going through my phone because I listened to, I don't remember the podcast, but they were interviewing the writers and the directors for this. And there weren't any spoilers, but it was really good. But I don't remember the podcast that it was on.
I'll look it up, because they've done a bunch of interviews lately, but there's a lot. That's really cool. So
cool.
Sweet.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, Evan, pleasure as always. This was a blast. So this concludes our latest What's News episode. Oh, it was awesome. But sweet. Well, and again, for our listeners out there, thank you so much to our Patreons. We really appreciate the support. And even if you can't give anything there, just, share the show with your friends, like whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or on YouTube, wherever you get it, just leave us a review. It really helps. And we appreciate your support. So remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests. We will see you next time.
Peace.
If you'd like to support our show on Captivate, feel free to go to captivate.fm and find our show, subscribe. You'll get access to any future online D&D campaigns over there. You'll get an extra bonus question for 4 to 8 times a month. You'll get extra content like that through there. You also get a one-time donation you could make to help support the show right on Captivate. So you don't get anything for the one-time donation, but if you would like to just support the show once, do a quick donation, you can do that through captivate.fm. Our overhead includes editing software, marketing, equipment, recording software, and a whole lot of other stuff. And we really appreciate everybody who can help keep the lights on.
Hello, friends. If you like systematic ecology, then there's a host of other podcasts in our network that we think you will like just as much. And so we're part of the Anazal Ministry Podcast Network, and we hope that you can hop over and subscribe with all the podcasts that are on our network. Like, for instance, The Homily, which is, Pastor Will Rose's sermon here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina at Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. You have another podcast called The Whole Church Podcast, the OG, the originals, the beginner of it all. Yes, Joshua Noel and TJ working for unity among the church and having great conversations with the wide spectrum of those who are involved in Christian ministry and the church. You have My Seminary Life by Brandon Knight, who's discussing what he's learning in seminary, he is learning his theological studies and bringing to the surface those big things that we're wrestling with and thinking through theologically in the church and beyond. There's the Let Nothing Move You podcast from Christian Ashley, who is walking through the Bible in a very Bible study type fashion and walking through the biblical narrative. You have Dummy for Theology. I don't think Joshua is a dummy, but he's going to lift up theological themes that he's thinking about and wrestling with. And maybe there's not a lot of answers, but there's definitely a lot of great questions out there that he's lifting up with some great theologians across the whole spectrum of Christianity. And then there's the Bible After Hours. Man, if you like to get risky, if you like to get controversial, there's this foul-mouthed preacher who goes through the Bible from a more progressive point of view, challenging the status quo of the modern church. Yeah, you don't want any kids around with that podcast. And then you have the Clydes, one of my favorite couples that I like to listen to. One of the hosts here on Systematic Ecology, Taylor and Elizabeth Clyde, go through weekly discussions and kind of a devotional, conversational method of what's going on in their lives, where they see God moving in their lives, and what God is up to in the world. So those are the podcasts, a part of the AMP network. Subscribe, follow. We hope you can be a part of all that great network with the wonderful podcasts at AMP.